Do you understand how dark it is? How far down the line we are? How late it is?
Cause snakes play and fakes lay like hidden bombs. We march in unison. The soul is truer than eternal missions with just a
lifetime to do it in. We are back. It's the Info Warrior with Jason Bermas. We have Joe Banister with us, and we're going to play this clip of Harry Reid talking about the income tax being voluntary. We're going to come back to Joe, and then we're going to take your calls. We're going to go to Eric, Rick, Artem, and more. It's the Info Warrior. Hit it, guys.
If the government is in the business of forcefully taking money from some people in order to provide welfare benefits to others, how will the people whose money is being taken feel about the government?
Well, I don't accept your phraseology. I don't think we force people.
Taxation is not forceful?
Well, no.
It's voluntary?
In fact, quite to the contrary. Our system of government is a voluntary tax system.
Oh, if you don't want to pay your taxes, you don't have to?
Oh, of course you have to pay your taxes. But
well, the government will force you to pay, or they'll fine you or imprison you.
We have a voluntary system. The fact of the matter is that if when you pay your taxes, see, in many other countries it's not voluntary. For example, in many countries, the government makes sure that your employer takes out every penny. In many countries don't file income tax returns.
We have withholding here too, don't we?
Pardon me?
Withholding?
With some programs, yes. But I'm talking about in some countries, European countries as an example, you don't file an income tax return. There is no need to, because your employer takes all the money out. That's the difference between a voluntary and an involuntary system. You can't cheat and not pay your taxes.
Right.
But I don't accept your phraseology that you forcibly take money from somebody else and give it to that's the way it is on any program.
Can the taxpayer...
highway program is the same. We take money, we forcibly take money in your phraseology from people on highways with it. Put people in the Army.
Can the taxpayer decide not to pay his taxes if he wants?
He can not pay his taxes if he wants.
What will happen?
He's subject to civil and criminal penalties.
They'll put him in jail. They use force against him. He pays. Everybody pays taxes under threat of jail or fine, under threat of force. In other words, you are forced to pay your taxes, whether you fill out your form voluntarily or whether it's withheld by your employer. You don't have a choice on whether you can pay taxes that are going to be used for welfare programs. You can't make that choice.
Well, but the reason our system is called a voluntary tax system, and I recognize, that ultimately you can't cheat in your taxes, but we have many provisions in the law they don't have in most countries. We have deductibility for home, interest on mortgage payment. They don't have that in most countries. We have deductibility for certain excessive expenses as it relates to health, doctors, hospitals. We have all kinds of tax, some people call them loopholes, but others would call them incentives for people to do business. And that's why you're not forced to pay certain tax. There are ways, if you decide to buy a home.
You can decide not to pay taxes in the United States?
I really don't understand what you're trying to get at. The point of the matter is...
Because you objected to my phraseology. You say that the government isn't forcefully taking money from some people to provide welfare benefits to others. And in fact, that's what it's doing, because all taxation is forceful. It's backed up by physical force. If you don't pay your taxes, the government will intervene with you forcefully. So you don't have a choice. It's not voluntary. You can't decide not to pay and not suffer a consequence. If you don't pay, you'll go to jail.
Well,
so you're forced to pay.
You don't go to jail. Some people go to jail. There are all kinds of civil penalties. If you don't pay your taxes, you pay interest and you pay penalties. The fact of the matter is, our system is a voluntary system.
Lee is trying to skirt around the issue and, say it's a voluntary system, but say, well, you do have to pay them. I mean, what is your take on that clip, Joe?
It cracks me up every time I hear it. I mean, I just think it's hilarious that here, like you say in the DHS report, where they're just animated about people saying that the system is voluntary. Hopefully the first person they're going to go after is Senator Reid, because he's the one that keeps calling it voluntary. And, in my experience, as I say, I spent 2 years before I even resigned from the IRS looking at their own literature, looking at their own manuals. And, I mean, the word voluntary is everywhere. And the reason that it's everywhere, in my opinion, is because they they know that they are violating people's rights, not the rank and file agents, but in terms of the policymakers and the people that run the IRS. They know that it has to be a voluntary system to maintain its constitutionality. There are people that they make pay the tax who aren't required to pay it. And one of the ways that they get people to do that, as Senator Reid pointed out, is through deductions. If you don't file a tax return and put down your home mortgage interest deduction or your business deduction, the IRS will run with your gross, and they'll tax you on your gross. And of course, who wants to pay a tax on, the $80,000 that they made when they can deduct $30,000 of their home mortgage interest and pay tax on $50,000? So there are these incentives that cause people to need to file a tax return just to lower the tax that the IRS is going to come after them for. And I think this is why, Senator Reid got caught in being tongue-tied, because he's trying to explain something that's kind of beyond explanation, or beyond justification anyway.
Yeah, and he wants to skirt around the issue that the IRS will use force against you if you don't voluntarily give up your taxes, and this has been exerted against yourself, correct?
Right. I mean, I was prosecuted back in November 2004 is when I was indicted. And actually, speaking of the violence part, when I was arrested, the prosecutor attempted to convince the judge that I was this dangerous guy because I had firearms training, and I was going to be violent, and I wouldn't want to go to prison, because everybody would beat me up and kill me. So I was going to be this terrible flight risk. And the judge just looked at the guy like he was a nut, because there was no evidence that I had any violence in my past, and just because I knew how to use a firearm didn't make me violent. But it's pretty typical for the IRS to demonize, whether they actually come out and attack someone like they did me, or just the public in general. So what you see with the DHS and the larger, all the vaccination stuff, the flu scares, it's all about keeping people chasing their tails and demonizing groups of people, and an us versus them mentality that they want to cultivate.
Absolutely. The website is freedomabovefortune.com. Let's go to a couple calls. Let's go to Eric in Pennsylvania. Eric, you're on the line.
Hey, what's going on? What's going on, Joe?
Hi, Eric. How are you?
I'm great, man. Well, I didn't call in to talk to Joe, so can I say two things?
Sure, you got it.
All right. The first is I was on the phone with a lady from the IRS last year, and she told me, oh, well, I see you didn't file your 2004 tax return. And I said, yeah, I did. And she said, well, I don't see it. And I said, well, okay, well, what happens? Am I going to get in trouble? And she goes, no, if we owe you any money, you're not going to get it if you don't file it within 3 years. So I don't own a house. I rent. I pretty much don't work, on the books that much. So I don't think they're really going to come after me. But if you're a business owner or you have a house or some property for them to come steal, they will come after you. It's just a warning to everybody out there.
Well, let me get Joe's take on that. When does the IRS generally go after somebody?
Well, Eric's pretty much right on. I mean, if the IRS, with our big brotherish society that we have today, the IRS can even use public record searches, much like people can use, and they can get a pretty good idea of what kind of assets you have. And if you're somebody that has stuff that's easy for them to take, like a home or a big bank account or retirement account, they're going to pay very close attention to you. If you're someone like Eric describes, where maybe most of your withholding covered your tax, or they can't search and really find any assets for you, you're going to go down to the bottom of the pile. So they do prioritize based on how much you have to lose and how much they have that they can steal.
What else you got for me, Eric?
All right. I just want to comment. Joe, are you familiar with 42 U.S. Title Code Section 666?
Seems like I've heard of that because of the 666. Remind me.
Well, all right. Basically what happened was I was a month and a half late on my child support, and they seized my bank account. And I got a letter in the mail, and it said it was Title 42, Section 666, and that basically what it said, if you owe child support or any financial institution, they can seize your bank account. That's Mark of the Beast stuff right there.
Yeah, so the IRS takes care of the seizure, but they do it through Title 42?
Section 666. Now, the other thing I wanted to call about was I heard Alex talk about YouTube today and how he always runs into people who were woken up to his show on YouTube. Mm-hmm. Back in 2006, before I knew any of this stuff, I was investigating 9/11 myself, and I was typing it into YouTube, and that's when I came across 9/11 Road to Tyranny by Alex Jones. And I got to be honest, I was pretty scared after watching that. So
I mean, you know what? That one was the movie that really woke me up to the bigger picture. I was looking into 9/11.